Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about making sublimation tiles. I'm going to make these several different ways so that you know the best method that will work for you using the supplies that you have on hand. And I'm going to make several different brands of regular tiles. So you might use these in a craft project, you might use these to decorate your home, like in your tile, like as a decorative tile accent. Or I'm also going to show you how to make a decorative cheese board that uses a tile insert. So however you use these methods, you are sure to love making sublimation tiles for yourself. So let's take a look at the supplies we're going to use. The supplies you're going to need are as follows. So you will need heat resistant tape. You will need your sublimation blanks. So these are sublimation tiles and they have a sublimation coating. I'm going to try a few different varieties in this video, including one from Amazon, one from JP+, and these are just plain tiles maybe you would put on your wall or you could use in your craft projects. However, I also wanted to do a tile sublimation cheese board so you could see an application with the tile as well. Then you will need your sublimation print. So these are sublimation ink printed on sublimation paper from a sublimation printer. I have two different designs. Both of those will be available for free in the description below this video. Lint roller, heat resistant tape, and protective paper. Now I am going to test a few different ways on how to do these because in my opinion you do need a little something else. So if you've ever struggled with sublimation tiles, it is because the surface can be uneven and plus the edges are probably slightly rounded. Because of that, we're going to use a few different techniques because some of these pads can be expensive. So I do have a budget-friendly option for you in this video, and we're going to see how well it works in comparison with the other two options. The first option is a Nomex pad. For the Nomex pad, you would put the Nomex pad on your heat press, and you would put your sublimation print down, and you would put the tile face down, heat press over the top. What this will do, this is a heat-resistant pad, and it's squishy. So when you press down, the sublimation print will contour around the edges of your tile. And this helps you get a more consistent result across your tile. Now again, like these can be fairly expensive. The next option I've used for several years now is a rubber pad, and it is heat conductive. And I have used this for a number of years, however, they are very pricey. But you put your sublimation tile in the press, put your sublimation print down, secure it into place, and you put this mat over the tile and heat press over the top. And what this does is it helps to conform to that tile shape and conduct the heat throughout the rubber pad and throughout the surface of the tile. Now, because these are so expensive and people have been having issues purchasing them, I found a silicone mat that is supposed to do the same thing and is way less expensive. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the tile in the heat press. We're going to cover it with a sublimation print taped down, and then we're going to put this silicone pad over this and press. And it's supposed to do the same thing as the rubber, where it conducts the heat and conforms to the shape of the tile. So we're going to test all three of those methods on the Amazon tile. I'll use the best method to sublimate my other tile options so we can compare and contrast and see which tile works best as well as which method for sublimating tiles. For all of these, we can prepare the tile in a similar manner. So first of all, you want the tile to be clean. You can use a lint roller over the top. You can use rubbing alcohol and a cloth. You just want it to be clean and dry before you start the process. The other thing is that I'm in a controlled temperature environment. My tile is probably going to be a similar temperature no matter what time of year. If you don't store these properly and they are cold or hot, the time and temperature can vary when you sublimate. So at this point, before you add the sublimation print, if your tiles have, say, been left outside in the cold and they are extremely cold, you might put them in your heat press and just sort of hover the heat press over them and bring them to a climate-controlled room temperature situation. Once that's done, it's time to add our sublimation print. So this is sublimation ink printed on sublimation paper from a sublimation printer, and this tile has a sublimation coating on it. Tiles from somewhere like Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that will not work for this process. You do need a tile that has a sublimation coating already applied. So I'm just gonna pick and choose what area of this print that I want. I just printed a full sheet of sublimation print for these examples. And you can trim these to be oversized. That way you have plenty to wrap around that tile as you sublimate it. Now, if you're using that Nomex pad version, perhaps you don't need to tape the tile. However, I go ahead and tape the tile just so nothing moves. What you do want to make sure is that you don't get the tape on any of the white portions of the tile. The white portion could extend down on the sides, so just make sure the tape does not get on any of those white portions. And then we will need protective paper for each of the methods that I mentioned. So you want to put the protective paper on the top as well as the bottom. And so now I'm going to repeat for several tiles, and we're going to head to the heat press and press these with the 3 different methods that I mentioned so we can see how those work. And I might do one without any of the methods that I mentioned so I can show you what your results might be. So I headed to the heat press, and the first one that I wanted to press was the one with the Nomex pad on the bottom. To do that, I actually put my Nomex pad inside of the heat press and closed the heat press. I wanted each of these tiles to be equal, so I wanted the heat press to be very hot, even the bottom surface. This is one trick that you can use, especially if your first sublimation tile is not turning out correctly. Be sure that the bottom surface is thoroughly heated. So I allowed my heat press to heat up, then opened it up, and I did want to get the pressure right on each of these. So I put a blank tile in just to get the pressure right. Once I got the pressure right, then I put in my sublimation tile. So on top of the Nomex pad, we have the protective paper, sublimation print, sublimation tile face down, and then protective paper over the top. And then I pressed each of these at 400 degrees for 400 seconds. All of the pressing times and temperatures were the same. Once that press was complete, I removed the sublimation tile from the press and put it on a heat resistant mat to cool. Then I repeated for the green mat version. Once again, I put a blank tile in to get my pressure correct. Then I added sublimation paper, the tile face up, the sublimation print face down, then protective paper over the top, and then that green rubber mat over the top. Again, pressed 400 degrees for 400 seconds. Then I moved on to that white silicone pad. Again, I put a blank tile in and set the pressure. Then I added that in the same order as the green pad. So protective paper on the bottom, sublimation tile face up, sublimation print face down, protective paper over the top, and then that white silicone sheet. Now this sheet did come with a really weird protective sheet over the top of it, and I found that wasn't heat resistant, so I removed that before I started. You want the foamy portion of what you purchase on this one. Now for my first press using this white silicone sheet, I was very nervous that the entire sheet was going to melt, so I did cover the entire sheet with protective paper. I did not do that on presses after this, and it did not melt, so you do not have to put that protective paper over the top. I was just being super cautious with this heat press. Then I went ahead and pressed 400 degrees, 400 seconds. And then finally I did one tile where I didn't use anything on it, so I just put the tile into the press. So I just put protective paper on the bottom, tile in the press, sublimation print on the top, protective paper on the top, and press that one. So now let's look at the comparison of those. So here's the version with the Nomex pad, and it turned out great, bright, vibrant. The edges look amazing. The rubber pad looked the same. Again, bright, vibrant, the edges look great. That new, to me, white pad actually turned out great. The sublimation tile looked perfect, the edges look great. Now, when I did not use anything, hopefully you can tell, I didn't use anything on this last tile here. It is very dull looking. The edges are okay. I could probably get by with the edges, but the finish itself is very dull, and I've already tried to like scrub it off. I thought maybe there was something on it, and I just can't get it as bright and vibrant as these other three. So doing it without anything, I'm gonna say that is not the method I want to use. The white silicone sheet is actually the cheapest of these three methods, so I'm gonna use the white silicone sheet to do a couple more projects. The first project is another brand of sublimation tile, and I'm repeating the same steps here. So I'm putting it protective paper, sublimation tile face up, sublimation print face down, then the protective paper over the top, and that white silicone sheet. You can see here that I didn't use any protective paper on the top and pressed. I did the time and temperatures on these the same as I have been, so 400 degrees, 400 seconds. Then I did the project, which will become the cheese board, and this tile's a little larger, but I did it for the same time and temperature just to see what would happen, and it worked great. So I repeated those same steps with that white silicone sheet with this large tile. So this tile that I just pressed, it has a matte finish, whereas this one has a glossy finish. And these are the two that I used the same exact method on. And I must say that even though this tile has a matte finish, the print is very vibrant and it really pops off of the surface. So I absolutely love the way this turned out as well. The edges look amazing. I was worried about these edges. They seem to be more rounded than this version, but it turned out great. And then the same for this tile that I'm gonna add to the cheese board. It turned out great with that method. And all you do literally is just set it inside of the cheese board. That way it's removable when you go to clean this up. So now that I've shown you how to make these sublimation tiles, I'm going to say that whichever method you have the supplies on hand will work. So if you have a Nomex pad, that method worked well. If you have that green rubber pad, that worked well as well. And then if you don't have either of those, need a method to make perfect sublimation tiles, that white silicone sheet is going to be your cheapest option. And as you can tell in this video, it worked really well. So whichever products you have on hand, purchase some sublimation tiles and you can start making these for yourself. So I'm going to link to all the supplies I used plus the sublimation tiles that I used in the description below this video. So just head there and you can pick up sublimation tiles for yourself or pick up that sublimation cheese board and start making that with any print that you would like. However, you can download my free prints and use those as well. So now if you have any questions, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you liked this video and it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.